The election is literally 1 month away, and the big question on everybody's mind is who's going to win this thing. And the honest truth is, and I would love to give you a different answer, nobody has any freaking idea. But just because we don't know for sure doesn't mean I'm not going to give you my prediction, and I'll talk about some of the evidence behind it. If you go look at my other videos, I break down the polling a little bit more. But here was my prediction, and I don't want to bury the lead or anything, so I'll just tell you straight up, I think Donald Trump is going to pull it out. And I don't think it's going to be a landslide win. I think it's going to be a close election, but I do think Donald Trump is going to win, and I'll explain my reasoning. There are two sides to every race. There's the polling, and there's the turnout, and I've talked about both of these on my channel, and I'll break down for you how I feel about both as it stands right now. And some of this, I'm going to bring up some data on this, but I got to be honest with you guys. A lot of it's a feeling. And I know a lot of you out there are like that as well. I've gotten a lot of comments being like, well, I want to be data oriented. But at the same time, you also do have to go off your gut, especially as we'll talk about. The polls are not the most helpful or the most accurate, in my opinion. So I'll break that down first. For polling, if you look at the most liberal models right now, like 538, for instance, which is done by ABC, you'll see that the polls have not moved in over a month. They have not changed. Now, the polls are better for Kamala Harris, but they just haven't gotten any better. So that means to me a couple things. The first is that Kamala's momentum is killed. There is no Kamala Harris momentum. There was definite momentum when she first entered the race because all the Democrats were just psyched that they didn't have a dead person running for president anymore. The second observation I have about this, though, is that pollsters are hedging their bets. When you look and there's no poll changing, it really, really makes you wonder. Like, shouldn't there be some outliers out there? There's hardly any. And I hear from a lot of people out there. I'll explain why I find this so interesting. I hear a lot of people out there talk about how pollsters are corrupt. Now, if you want to talk about pollsters being wrong, I'm totally on board. I'm on board for you. They all had, Joe Biden winning by 8%, and he ended up winning by 3%. I'm talking about the popular vote, not the Electoral College, of course. So they're way off. But here's the deal. They're not corrupt. And the reason why they're not corrupt, they really aren't, is because you have to understand the incentives, right? Corruption is all about incentives, and the pollsters don't have the same incentive to be corrupt as, say, the military-industrial complex or big pharma or big tech. Their incentives are to be as right as possible, because if they're right, then they're trusted. That is the honest truth. However, that doesn't mean that we can necessarily trust them just because they have the good incentives, and the reason why I say that is because what we're seeing right now with the last month is that all the polls are basically showing ties between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, every single one. And so you have to wonder, you have to sit there for a second and say, why is it always a tie? Is it because they're really that close? I kind of doubt it. The reason why I think it is because they're hedging their bets. Because again, their incentive is to be right. If they hedge their bets and they're saying it's a tie and Trump ends up winning by 2%, 2% in the polling world is pretty dang good. If Harris wins by 2, then again, they're within 2. But if they come out and say that Donald Trump is up by 5 or Harris is up by 5 and the other wins by 2, they're off by 7, and that's really bad. Even if those are the results that they got, I'm not so sure that they would publish those results. I'm not necessarily saying they're just changing their results. I'm saying that they might be selective about who they're accepting into these polls and who they're not. So again, I don't know if we can trust the polling all that well. However, just for the sake of argument, for my prediction here, let's assume we can. Let's assume we can accept the polling. The polls always severely underestimate Donald Trump, and he is behind by a whisker, as he said, so barely behind. And so if the polls are always underestimating Donald Trump, I think he pulls it out, because that's always how it's been. Like I said, they underestimated him by 5. And right now, Donald Trump is barely down, maybe 2, 3, 4% max. Again, that's the popular vote, not the Electoral College. So I think Donald Trump pulls it out. Now, that's the polling. Let's talk about turnout, which, as I've said from the beginning, if you've watched any of my videos, turnout way more important than persuasion, because you can say you're going to vote for Donald Trump. You can say you're going to vote for Kamala Harris, but did you vote for Kamala Harris? Did you vote for Donald Trump? I saw a fantastic post today about turnout. Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk's organization that he started, they're flying people out. They were literally advertising this. They're flying people out to Arizona to do ballot harvesting. Now, if you don't know what ballot harvesting is, this is what ballot harvesting is. Ballot harvesting is when you go to someone's door in a state that does mail-in voting. You say, hey, did you get your ballot? And they say, yes. You say, awesome. If you'll fill it out, I encourage you to fill it out for this person, but you can do whatever you want. Fill it out and hand it to me right now and I'll deliver it for you. And here's the thing, it's legal in many states. I know that sounds really sketchy, and it is sketchy and it should be illegal, but the reality on the ground is it is legal. And so what Turning Point is doing is something that Democrats have done forever. They do it so effectively. It's one of the reasons why they win elections. And so for Turning Point, a right-wing organization, to be doing this is absolutely fantastic. I think it's something that Republicans were never doing before, and Democrats are really good at this, so I'm glad they're doing it. It's going to help with turnout a lot. They bring they're bringing out-of-state help into a swing state. And it's genius. And you can see why Democrats would do this if it's legal. Again, I don't think it should be legal, but it is. And rather than just complaining about it, use it to your advantage. Win the election, then change the law if you want later, but don't complain about it now, which is what Republicans have done. Republicans are just not good at this. I think, though, that Republicans have learned their lesson and that they're going to do it this time. And I think that's going to spell really good things for their turnout. I'll give you an example. The reason why I think Republicans have really learned from this is that in 2022, you'll remember, there was supposed to be a red wave. And the red wave did come, but it only came in one state, and that was Florida. And the reason why is because DeSantis organized ballot harvesting campaigns in Florida to combat the Democrats. And so what you had was Democrats doing it and Republicans doing it. And what did we see? Republicans won by a landslide. So you see that if Republicans actually follow the same rules as Democrats, they win. And again, I understand you might want to change those rules, but you have to win the election first, then you get to change the rules. You don't get to bicker and complain about it. So I'm banking on the fact that we've learned this time, because one thing I cannot stand, guys, cannot stand this, is when Republicans come out, they talk about election interference, and they talk about how there's nothing that we can do to win. What does that do to your base? Do you think that they're ever going to go vote? You're essentially saying, we want to lose. Is there corruption? Yes. I just talked about ballot harvesting. Do I think that's right? No, I don't think it's right. However, if the Democrats are playing by these dirty rules and you want them changed, you must play by the same rules and then change the rules. It is so counterproductive to go out here and tell people not to vote because their vote's not going to be counted. I'm sorry, it's not true. There's hardly any evidence for that. You need to vote. You got to vote, and I'm hoping Republicans will not shoot themselves in the foot like they've done in the past. Get out and vote, and ballot harvest as well if you're in a swing state and it's legal there. I mean, even if it's you're not in a swing state and it's legal, you should still be encouraged to ballot harvest, because Republicans need to win the Electoral College, but winning the popular vote would be massive as well, for Donald Trump, for the Republican Party, but also for the unity of our country, because it's Republicans. If they learn their lesson, Trump's going to win this time. That's my prediction. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Please go down below, comment, like, and subscribe, and watch another video.